Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dice Tower. My name is Chris Yee.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Mike Delisio.
I'm Camilla Cleghorn.
Today, we're taking a look at the expansion for a game called The Lost Ruins of Arnak Expedition Leaders. This is an expansion for the best-selling game of last year, per the data that we got from Game Nerds. This is the highest pre-ordered expansion of all of last year as well.
There was a bit of anticipation for this one, you're saying, Chris.
I think people like it.
I think people love the base game, and I think people are excited to see what this one brings to the table.
Yeah.
I wish we had a way to find out what this brings to the table, Chris.
It's too bad, Mike. All right, but yeah, let's go ahead. This is not an overview of how the game plays. If you want to see how Lost Ruins of Arnak plays, we'll link the original review. This is going to show you what's inside the box, and then the second most handsome man at the Dice Tower is going to show you that. Here's a quick look at what comes in the expansion. You'll see an overlay board here, individual character boards with starting cards, new items and relics, as well as a couple of other little bits here. Let me show you how they all tie into the main game. One of the key things here in the expansion is a double-sided research overlay board that you will place right over the normal research track, and you'll play with these instead. On this side here, you'll see that the top is worth more victory points if you reach it. Along the side, there are different bonuses. You can get fear cards, you can overcome guardians. There are a few new symbols, but this spot right here, you take one of the guardian tiles at random, and then you flip it over onto here. You'll see there's actually also a couple of guardians that are included in the expansion, marked with this little symbol, and they have different costs and benefits. But you'll take a guardian, put it here. When you move your magnifying glass up the research track, once you reach this spot, you can pay the normal cost, overcome the guardian, get its benefits, the victory points and everything. But at this point, everybody else is now eligible to continue moving up higher on the research track, but cannot do that until the guardian's overcome. On the other side here, give you a quick pan of some of the benefits that you'll get on there. You'll see a few choices, different ways to get more of the assistance and flip them over. You have a little bit more control of the timing of all of that. But one of the most interesting spots is that here in the middle of the board, you'll take one of the relic cards. You'll take one of them that has a cost of 3 compasses. You'll place it onto this. When you move your magnifying glass beyond this step here, you'll have to move it on this side, and the book, it will have to move on this side. When you pass this spot of the magnifying glass, you immediately get the effect of the blue relic card that's shown on there, and then can continue to move up. The book has to move up this side, getting these benefits. Additionally, marked with the symbol down here are new relic cards as well, so you can see some of the effects that they'll have here, just giving you some more options, increasing the size of the deck. There's also more item cards that are included with the same symbol on the bottom, so you can pull them out if you want to, but honestly, once this expansion is shuffled in, there's almost no difference in leaving it shuffled in. The expansion comes with a red staff to control the timing, which what it'll do is it'll remove 2 cards on each side of it at the end of each round because it's a red staff. And lastly, probably the most exciting part are that there are 6 variable player powers you can have. This is an example of the captain. We're going to go through all of them really quick. The captain has one of these cards here where depending on how many of his workers he's put out, you'll get a different benefit. But wait, this goes up to 3. That's right, because the captain gets a 3rd worker, a gray worker here, and he also has a unique spot he can go to activate any of the assistants that are still available for purchase. And each character also comes with a little sheet explaining their powers. So 3 workers, and then a unique spot that he can use. The Falconer has these 4 starting cards, along with the 2 normal fear cards. One of the things that they will get to do is that they, with certain conditions, will be able to advance their Eagle token. The Eagle token can move to a spot, and then at any time you can choose to pull the Eagle all the way back to the starting space and activate the benefit. To get a coin, or to get a tablet and an airplane, or to activate any revealed level 1 space or any revealed level 2 space. Big ways to be able to get more actions. You can see some of the starting cards allow them to move the Eagle token. They'll also get to move it at the start of every round. The Baroness is loaded with money. They'll get money at the start of rounds 2 through 5. They also have a card over here that shows a chart, depending on the number of item cards they've played, because they are all about items. There's a card here. It has a unique back to it, unlike the rest of the cards, where this is always in their hand at the start of every round.
And when you play this for an instant effect, any item card you purchase can go directly into your hand, thus allowing it to be easier to reach this goal over here. The professor cares a lot about relics. At the start of every round 2 through 5, they will get either compasses or tablets that can only be spent from their briefcase here for paying for to activate the relic cards. They'll also have a lineup of 3 relic cards in front of them that only they can purchase from, and then some of the cards here are based off of relics as well as being able to swap them out from their private display with the general display. The Explorer here is my favorite because they're all about snacks. They start the game with 2 snack tokens. In the 3rd round, they'll get a 3rd snack token, 3rd round onward. They can use these each one time per round. They only have 1 worker at the start of the game, but they can use a snack token and move their worker to another spot, or when they play one of these starting cards here that shows a snack area, if you have a cost on this, you pay it, and then you can get a stronger effect from this card here. So instead of just getting a compass, you can activate a campsite, or instead of getting a coin, you can get a tablet and activate one of the idols on the board. The last character here is the Mystic, who has an additional spot for being able to put the idol tokens. Every time that they start their hand of 5 cards at the beginning of a round, they'll also have to draw a fear card, but their special shtick is that when they exile fear cards, they put them onto a separate pile here on the side, and when they use a fire action here, whether from idle tokens or from their cards, they can trash a certain number of these fear cards to gain an effect, like overcoming a guardian if you spend 4 of them, or getting a coin and a compass if you spend 2. And lastly here, you'll see that 2 of these idle spaces are marked blue on every player board. Well, the Mystic is 3, but that's because if you cover up one of these spaces with an idol, you not only can activate one of these instant bonuses, but you can also use your player character specific blue special power, which ties into what your power is. So that's your overview of Lost Ruins of Arnak Expedition Leaders.
All right, so with these reviews, we usually talk about components. I think for the most part, it's the same that you would expect from the original base game. All the art is really good looking. I don't know if there's much to say in the way of that.
I assume it's the same artist because the art looks.
I believe it's the same
right?
4 artists.
Right, yeah.
I haven't pronounced their
okay.
names. Yeah.
Ooh,
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and if they are not, they did a wonderful job
Okay,
of keeping
right,
it consistent
right,
because
right,
it does
right.
look very consistent with the base game.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I really thought of as being notable for components is that the expansion research tracks are another whole board that you lay on top of the base board. How are you guys with that? I mean,
I love it.
do you?
I love it, yeah.
Okay.
It's easy. It's super
Right.
easy. You flip it over, you got multiple sides, lots of options. It takes up almost no more space, and they didn't have to reprint a whole new board.
Yeah, they did something similar with the Rise of Ix, the Dune expansion, right? Where there was another board that laid on top of another board. And it works. I mean, you're right. It does work, and it also allows for further expansions. I do think that there are going to be some people that are going to be bothered by it. I just have a feeling that there are going to be some people that
don't love
like
board overlay.
Yeah.
That typically bothers me. In this one, I didn't have a problem with it, but I think that's because it's just the research track, and so when you go, you're doing one specific thing,
Right.
moving one piece, one space, and and so you're not messing with it that much.
Yeah.
But I was kind of nervous about that because you don't want to accidentally slip the board, and then the pieces go, and then
Sure,
you're, oh, where was everybody? Hold on, let's, And so I thought it was. I didn't have a problem in this, and that is something that usually, I won't say it bothers me, but it kind of like. I notice it.
I think part of it is the size of it. Like it is it's a solid chunk of the board. It's
Right.
not like a little tiny thing
like
that you stick
corner.
over something. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of offhand would be a potential, alternative method would be like something in the game Batoku that has kind of a dual layered board, and there are parts that you kind of slot in and out, but
Price
That adds
point.
a
price point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, the MSRP on this one is like $30, and I think that's fairly reasonable, so that you just put the overlay board on there
Right.
without increasing the cost, like I said, printing a whole new board or something. So there's I think 3 main parts basically to this: the research track that you overlay, the character powers, and then just the more stuff. Let's talk about the more stuff, the cards. When you play. I mean, we haven't played Lost Ruins of Arnak like 100 times each.
Sure.
Do you feel any difference with the cards, or do you just appreciate that there's bigger stacks of them or anything?
So one of my favorite things about Lost Ruins of Arnak is, if I'm going to do a deck builder, I like a really tight deck. I like to know what I don't have a specific number, so I'll say 10 or 15 cards, you know, and so you're kind of playing those chances of I got this really good card, how often is it going to come up, trashing cards out, like a really lean, tight deck, and that amount of control and customization. And I really liked that at Lost Ruins of Arnak. I thought it did a fantastic job. When I played with the expansion, I found that was the only time I'd ever played where I had fear cards left in my deck at the end. I think I had 2 of them, if I'm not mistaken. It was really frustrating. it's like, you know, going to bed with debt or something. I don't know. It stressed me out. Anyway, so I found that there was not as many opportunities to trash cards that came up. And so I don't know if that ratio is different adding the cards in, or if that was just the plays that I had specifically. Did anybody else feel that was a little bit off?
So I haven't played just base game. I've played the expansion with and without base game components.
Okay.
And I've played with all the expansion.
The different research tracks.
The different yeah. So I've played with different things. So I think I've only played with all of the cards in, all the extra cards. And I definitely feel like going through that deck, I don't know what's going to come out. I don't really have an idea of what's going to fit in my deck. It feels like there's so many cards and you don't get through very many of them.
Okay.
And so maybe that's similar.
Yeah, maybe. What about you? I mean, how did you guys compare to base?
Well, first of all, I will say that I don't quite have that same anxiety that you are mentioning. So that wasn't the way I was looking at it. And no, but that's just a player preference thing, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, when I look at a game like Arnak, I enjoyed it. I believe I rated it somewhere in the range of an 8, the base game. But I think I may have even mentioned in the original review that I felt like it might get stale soon. And so I felt like it was a game that right off the bat was looking for expansions. And so I don't mind the extra cards. I don't necessarily always go for that super lean deck. I mean, that's just not the way I tend to go through deck builders. So I appreciated the extra cards. I especially liked kind of this gets into the player powers a little bit, but being able to synergize those cards with some of your own player abilities.
Yeah.
So I liked having the extra cards, but if I were, you know, your style of a player, I probably wouldn't like
and I don't know. I mean, so I guess to clarify a little bit, I love that there was more cards. And one thing that this expansion brings is a rule change with the red staff to where you, at the end of each, is it a day? At the end, oh my God, the red staff. Yeah. But instead of just removing one card from both the artifacts and the items at the end of each day, round, whatever it is thematically, you remove 2. And so you are getting a lot more of those cards out. So I did like that there was more stuff. I like that a lot. I just wonder if that balance of how much fear you can discard was maybe, you know, tilted a little bit.
The ratios may have been changed. I mean, I'd have to look through and.
I think that's what you'll find is probably that if you're used to very much the Arnak market decks, because I know that there's these ratio of cards, I'm expecting this many to come out, it'll probably throw you off shuffling them in. Yeah. I think I'm with Mike that I just like the variety. I like more stuff.
And you do see a lot because of the red
staff, which I will always play with. Absolutely.
Yes. And look, I don't want to get too high into a house ruling here, but you could play it that way with just the base game too. So
absolutely,
and you should. That was going to be my comment. You should. Yes,
now, if you played it that way without the extra cards, would you run out of cards?
Well, that is a question.
And then you just reshuffle.
I guess. Player count too.
Yeah, that probably matters.
You could, but definitely with 2-player, I would always play. Even just playing a base game, I'd always play with the destroy 2 cards on each side
because there's no one. Yeah, you don't have enough people pulling.
Which also just brings such a good pressure because you have that pressure of the artifacts and the items. I want that, but do I get it now or do this other action first? You know, just that little bit of push-pull of like when planning your actions. But I think knowing also that you can't wait till the next round, you know, because it might
half
be
the
bought,
market's gonna
but also half the market, depending on where you are in the game, is going to be gone. So I think that brought a really good tension to the market.
Very cool. So then let's talk research track up next. 2 new research tracks. One of them feels more similar to the original, where there's the little first place tokens. The more that you move up, you get a little bonus. The other side only has 2 stacks of them, and so there's a lot fewer of those. I found that interesting because it doesn't feel as much like there's a first player advantage for zooting up the research track as quick, but also you get less stuff. more often. So we found it a little bit harder to play. I don't know if you had thoughts on the 2 research tracks that are included in the game.
It's interesting because that track that has less stuff also has less of the navigation green tokens. And so I felt like that game in general it felt like a tighter, different game than the other sides that had more navigation available, more resources available. I felt like it was just like we explored less, we did different things. It made different strategy, and so I think that if that's what you want, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I agree. My biggest kind of complaint with the base game of Arnak was that I felt like the research track was something that if one person was going hard on the research track and other people were trying to explore other strategies, that it did seem to me that other people were at a disadvantage. But if you focus on that research track, it almost kind of metas the game where everyone has to focus on the research track because they're going to win. At least in my experience, which is not exhaustive, but in my experience, that really felt like you can't let one person run away with that. Has that changed? I don't know. I haven't played it enough with the expansion to say if it has, but I do like that it kind of changes, like you were saying, the experience. It's a different way to kind of approach it. And so I like having more ways to kind of have that research track approach, and it showed you that there are different ways that you can handle it.
Throw a monster on, or throw a guardian on,
exactly.
or throw a relic on, or artifact on there. Yeah,
sure. I appreciated that.
Yeah. And then the last part of the player powers. I think that's probably what people are most excited about it. Save the best for last.
Correct.
Player powers. Thoughts on those?
Anyway, asymmetric player powers is one of my favorite mechanisms. I love it. I love it. And I think because of that, going into this, I was expecting a little bit more. I was expecting more asymmetry and that kind of stuff. But the more I thought about it, I was like, but that would, I think, maybe not break the game, but be really hard to maintain that balance because of everything going on in this one. So I think it was, at first I kind of went through this up and down feelings, like I'm so hyped and I'm really disappointed, and then I leveled out where it's like, no, I really think they nailed it. I think it's enough asymmetry that you feel like you have a one-up, and everyone feels like they have a one-up. But then I found it to be similar enough as well that it didn't interrupt the flow of the game, and everyone had a chance. That being said, playing with the player powers, I don't know about you guys, but when I have played with player powers, has been my lowest score ever, like in all my plays with player powers. Did you guys find that from base game, like your scores went down? Or am I just really bad at asymmetry? Am I really bad at one of my favorite mechanisms?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't really
I've
tried.
only played with player powers.
Yeah. So actually that brings up an interesting question. Is you've only played with player powers. Would you ever want to play without a cool little unique thing to yourself?
I don't see why you wouldn't play without it, because like Camilla said, like it's very minimal what it does, but it does add. It kind of gives you a direction to start, but it doesn't hedge you into a direction. So it's not like, oh, I'm good with money, I can only buy cards.
Right.
It gives you lots to do, but it kind of gives you a direction.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you brought up this, how asymmetric is it? And I have to imagine that this was a game that wasn't originally designed as an asymmetric game. And so I would think it would be harder to keep that balance when you're adding asymmetry to a Euro game that originally wasn't considering that. And I think they got the balance right. I agree with you that it doesn't feel wildly asymmetrical. Right. But I think that would be hard to do on a game that wasn't built with that as the framework. Yeah. I think the balance is about right. It has that thing where when you've played, when I played the first one, I liked my player power a lot. And then I looked at every other player power and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to play that one. Yeah, I'd like to play that one. Yeah, I'd like to play that one. So that to me is a good sign. All of the player powers felt fun. I think they're going to suit certain players more than others. Certain players are going to be like, oh yeah, I always am going to want the one that gives me an extra worker. Other players are going to be, oh, I always want the one that lets me do this better. So I'm big on player powers too. I would always want to play with them, honestly.
Hands down. If nothing else from the expansion, that for me, I think great, worth it. Thinking about your question though about score, I realized one of the things that I did was sometimes I played, looking back on it, like I should have made different choices. I just wanted to use my player power instead of playing the best strategy to the game.
100%.
So I have imploded my own game because I'm like, but I want to move the eagle token.
Yeah,
But I also know that I lost a game because I didn't really utilize my player power. And so I was playing the lady who gets extra money. She gets to like put cards directly into her hand.
The Baroness.
The Baroness, she's fancy. Cute old lady. Anyways, the thing that I did with it is that you get a lot of money, but then I kept spending my money on things other than cards. So I wasn't utilizing the cards and like putting them in my hand. Therefore, I had this card that was just kind of hanging out, being wasted. And so I did really poorly on that game because I didn't use the player power.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because you're saying that I haven't played Baroness, but back to like some people are gonna like other ones. That one I have zero interest in playing because again I like that lean deck. Don't make me like if
Don't
my
make you
path
buy
stuff that I might use once in the game. Like no, I'm
But
not
they're
into
points,
single
Camilla.
use.
They're points.
They are, and I think that's
I get but again, so I say not
You're
saying
right.
it's not going to be worth it.
It's just
it would,
not
you know,
your play
but it's
style.
not my play style.
Right.
Which again, that brings back that. I mean, they nailed it. They have a little bit of something for everybody, but each of them are also easy to pick up
Right.
because it's not
Yes.
like here's your whole pamphlet, go study for 10 minutes and let's come back and play.
Right.
You know, it's really quick. You can. Pick it up on the fly. So yeah, I really think they hit a sweet spot with it of not trying to overhaul the entire game to bring in this new mechanism of asymmetrical players. I think they really hit a sweet spot by just tweaking the game.
really well said. So why don't we move into our final thoughts then? Anyone want to start? We'll start Wendy, and then we'll go this way.
Okay, final thoughts and numbers.
Final thought, then rating.
Okay, so like I said that I have only played it with expansion elements. I've never played a complete expansion-free game, but I did really enjoy it. I don't know how I feel about expansions in general, adding lots of cards in. I tend to feel a little bit kind of like what you said about how it can kind of gum up the deck and change ratios. And so I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I do love the board on top. I love the player powers. I think it's awesome. So I'm going to give this an 8 for the expansion.
Very cool. I'm giving this one an 8.5, and that's because I never want to not play with the player powers. I never not want to play with the destroy 2 cards on each side, whether you needed a whole red staff or not. That's just a great rule to throw in, especially for lower player counts. I like the variation of the research tracks. So, I mean, there's pretty much nothing I don't enjoy about this game. I think that, and I also like that it's going to encourage me to stretch. If I play a player power for a strategy I don't like playing, buying lots of cards, for example, if I've got that, I'll say, okay, well, maybe I'll approach this game differently than I usually do. I think that's a good sign for an expansion.
Yeah, I think you guys both hit a lot of things I was going to say. To Chris's point here, that it makes you stretch. There's definitely things. I mean, even thinking about it now. Oh, you know what? Maybe I would try the Baroness, even though that's not mine. It's like, and I'm willing to. It's nothing in there like turns you off where you're like, I don't want to. And I haven't played with all the different tracks yet. And so knowing that I can explore that and maybe look into different strategies and maybe different groups, different tracks fits. So if you have somebody that always goes hard research and kind of forces you into that, which can get old, maybe try a different track, and so I like that it gives you that variability and there's a lot to explore in it. And then like the one possible negative that I can only think of with this game is, does it change a ratio of getting rid of the fear cards to a point that I don't like? And I don't think that I have enough plays of this to say absolutely.
Right.
And it seems like if that is nobody else has had that, then maybe it was just that play and the ones that became available to me, which I think is great then, and that kind of makes that a moot point. So I'm going to give it an 8. I definitely would also never play without it. I don't think it's a must-have. It doesn't fix the game, but it does bring more of what I like and offers you enough options to increase that replayability, increase the bandwidth of what kind of players I would play with and who I would enjoy it with, and how often I would get it to the table. So definitely, I would always have it in.
All right, well, I guess it's the curse of the hive mind because I'm coming in with an 8 as well. What's interesting, the reason why I'm not going to excellent, why I'm not going to the 8.5 is that I think for me to call it excellent, it would have to be that the expansion makes me want to play the game more than I did before. And it doesn't. However, if I'm going to play Arnak, I always want to play with it.
Okay.
if that makes sense. So it doesn't make me want to play it more than I did before, but now whenever I'm in the mood for Arnak, I'm always going to want to play with this, primarily because of the player powers. I absolutely love the player powers, and also this is my favorite type of expansion in the sense that it gives you more stuff. It doesn't necessarily change the game in such a way that you feel like you have to reteach it. Anybody who has played Lost Ruins of Arnak before, you can teach them everything they need to know about the expansion in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's probably pretty accurate.
Well,
And you can start the game with it.
Right.
Like you can, like I learned it with
Yeah.
it, 100% fine. If you told me
Yes.
it wasn't an expansion, I wouldn't think it was an
Right,
expansion.
that's my that was
Yeah.
gonna be my point. Is like you don't have to, and then this is because of the expansion. It just flows in. It's in your base explanation.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be an add-on.
And I think that for me is why I particularly went with an 8.5 Seal of Excellence, is because I said, you know what, Wendy would be able to learn Arnak super easy. Let's experiment, throw this in there, and you crushed me twice. So
And I mean, and I don't mean this as offense to Wendy, but like, and someone who's not Wendy either, who doesn't play really
Play
deep
games all
Euro
the time,
games,
yeah.
play you know, so that's
Yeah.
maybe a compliment to you, not take it the way I mean it, but you know, like it's not just those that are well versed in games and well versed in heavy Euros. They can even
Right.
handle it
if you can learn
First.
Arnak, you can learn this
Oh, absolutely.
in the
Yeah,
first
easily.
in the
game.
same swing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
perfect.
All right. So overall, I think we have good thoughts on this, and so favorable thought. That's a better way to say it. We have favorable thoughts on this
Favorable
expansion.
thoughts, okay.
So if you're one of the people who pre-ordered it, I hope you're excited about it.
Should be.
Yeah. So anyway, until next time, my name is Chris Yee.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Mike Delisio.
And I'm Camilla Cleghorn.
Have fun exploring the jungles.